This was a Vespers program that I presented at the village of Germantown on April the 28th, 2019. This was my granddaughter's 15th birthday, and I paid tribute to Madeline Elizabeth Miller at that presentation. This was a Vespers program, and none of the family was able to attend because they were all involved in sports that weekend. And the title of the presentation was, "What Happens When You Pray?" And I told a series of stories which I want to recant now to preserve this so that Madeline can look at this later and see the spiritual side of her grandfather, as well as the appreciation I have for her kind, thoughtful nature. The first story I want to tell took place when Whitney was at the campus school at the University of Memphis, and she was in kindergarten. And in kindergarten there, they did not teach the children to read, which was all right. And we decided to transfer Whitney to another school, St. George's private school, which was in Germantown. And when Whitney went there, unfortunately, all the children in the first grade were already reading, so Whitney was kind of behind the eight ball when she got there. In any event, at the end of the year when they had Honors Day, Whitney was given the award for the most improved. Well, that's very logical considering that she had further to go, and she was very pleased with that. So the next spring, about April, she asked me, she says, "Are you and Mama gonna come to my awards day when I get my award?" And that sort of stunned me for a minute because you don't get most improved 2 years in a row. And I could not think of any other award that she would get. And so I did not want my baby to be disappointed. So what I did, I began to pray that when she did not get an award, that she would be able to handle the disappointment. And I thought that would be the end of it. But that wasn't the end of it. Because almost daily she kept saying, "I can't wait to Honors Day when I get my award." And so I began troubled by that and began praying, "Father," I said, "I love this little girl. I don't want her to be disappointed. So will you help her to handle the disappointment when she does not get an award?" So this went on day in and day out for the next 6 weeks until the day that they were having awards day. Well, she was in the car in front of us before we could get out the door, just bouncing with excitement. We got to St. George's. She hopped out of the car and went and sat on the front row and kept looking back at us, beaming. And they began to give the awards. And they kept giving the awards, and all of a sudden Whitney quit looking back at us, and her head dropped. And I continued to pray, "Lord, help Whitney to handle the disappointment when she doesn't get an award." Went on, and finally the headmaster says, "The final award, and the one that I think is the most significant, goes to Whitney Miller, and that award is the Best Citizen." Now think about that. What award would you like to see your child receive more than any other? To be a good citizen. And now, many years later, Whitney's friends and family agree that Whitney is a good citizen. The second story I want to tell about answered prayer dealt with when I was getting ready to go to Charleston, and I was clearing out my office on 6268 Poplar, and Green was with me, and she was driving the car, and I was putting boxes in the car. So in any event, we were doing that on a Thursday afternoon, and when I got home, I could not find my car keys. And I began to look the Thursday night, and began to look Friday, and couldn't find my car keys, and began to think, well, what do I have on my car keys? Not only the key to 2 cars, but also those little devices that unlock the car, which probably cost $200 or $300 each, and I had 2 of those. And I got to thinking, I said, you know, it's also got my condo key. And if I don't find my car keys, I'm going to have to fly to Charleston. I'm going to have to get a motel room till I can go and get a locksmith to come over and look after and get me a new key. I've got to go to the car dealership there and get a new key. And as I thought about it, this was going to cost me a whole day of work and probably anywhere from $400 to $500 to $600, whatever. And it wasn't the money that bothered me, it was the difficulty in going through. So I began to think about it, and I began to worry about it and fret about it. And finally, on Saturday afternoon, before I was going to leave on Sunday, I just sat down and said a prayer. And I said, Lord, I said, you know the circumstances on that. If you don't have something better for me to do in Charleston and spend this money, then I would hope that you would help me find my car keys. And a peace came over me. And I sat there for a few minutes, and all of a sudden, I thought about going upstairs and looking on my desk one more time. And as I began to get up, I heard the clearest voice that said, I thought you had turned this over to me. And with that, I just sort of sat down. Within 5 minutes, the phone rang. And in a voice like James Earl Jones said, "Have you lost some car keys?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Did you find them?" He said, "No." He says, "I'm with Harris Teeter Supermarket, and if you will call this number, this lady will tell you where your car keys are." Now, how is that for an answered prayer? So I called the lady up and I said, "Ma'am," I said, "how did you find my car keys?" She said, "Well, I'm Jewish and I was walking to the Baron-Hirsch Synagogue for services, which is a very conservative Jewish synagogue. And I found these keys lying in the street. And I picked them up and I saw that there were several little barcode things that you use at the grocery store to scan when you're getting your groceries and all. And there was one from Kroger's, and there was one from Harris Teeter, and there was one from the 2 car dealers that I had. And said, I just took the time to call these and see if I could find out what I could do to help. And lo and behold, I got in touch with Harris Teeter. So therefore, I said, "Well, now where did you find my car keys?" And she says, "At the corner of Yates, where you turn left at the bottom of the hill. Now there's a dip there." So apparently what I had done is when Green and I were loading the car, I put the car keys up on top of the car. And where it hit that dip there, they fell off in the street there. And so though, that's where they were. But the important thing is I decided I would take it on my own to go look at it one more time. And then the Lord said, "I told you, I thought you had turned it over to me." So that's the second story about how God has answered that prayer. The third story was when I was going to New York University, where I've gone for a number of years to present programs. And I went to the airport. I had gotten my boarding pass, and I showed the lady my driver's license. And she handed me my boarding pass. So I went through the line, and when I got through the line, I could not find my driver's license. I had all kind of cards. I had 2 credit cards. I had a Costco card. I had a supplemental health card. I had my Social Security card. I had 4 or 5 other cards, a AAA card, and so forth and so on. But I could not find my driver's license. And so I went up to the lady, and of course it was getting late. I needed to board, and I was in a panic. And I went up to her, I said, "Ma'am," I said, "I cannot find my driver's license, and is there any way that you could look through this packet and see if in fact you can find it? I just had it when I checked in," and I handed her the whole packet of things. And she thumbed through it, and she said, "Well, You have a Costco card and that has your picture on it. I'm going to accept that and let you get on the plane. And relief came over the top of me. And so once I got on the plane, I said, now at LaGuardia Airport in New York, they're certainly not going to let me get on this plane with a Costco card. What I need to do is to contact Green and have her FedEx my passport to New York, and that will let me get on the plane. And then it dawned on me. The day that I was coming back from New York, the next day I was supposed to fly to Japan to speak to the biggest group of people that I ever spoken to. Usually I speak to 40 or 50, sometimes 100, but this group was 1,500 people. And my passport was in Memphis. What would have happened if I had not lost that driver's license? I would have missed my flight to Japan. I would have left this large audience hanging. Can you imagine that? So anyway, the Lord tipped me off on that. So when I got to New York, I went to the front desk of the hotel and I explained the situation and I handed my credit card, and when I reached in to hand them the credit card, there was my driver's license next to the credit card. Did I overlook it? Did the gate agent in Charleston overlook it? It was just a miracle. So anyway, I called Green and asked her not to email or not to FedEx the passport to New York, but instead to send that to Charleston. And so I got back to Charleston one evening, and these international flights leave in the evening. So I went out to FedEx and picked up my passport and went to Japan and gave the program. The point is, the more you pray and the closer you are to the Almighty, not only does He answer prayers better than you can answer prayers, or ask that prayers be given. So therefore, Madeline, it's my hope that you will have a spiritual journey. And at this presentation, I cited 3 Bible verses. One of them was Proverbs 3:5. This was given to me when Whitney was in a musical down by the creek bank when she was in the 7th grade. And it seems like every presentation I make seems to revolve around Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. In all ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your path. And I think the important word in there, other than trust, is will. Because we need to realize that God is sovereign, and if God is sovereign, He will answer our prayers. But if you do not consider that God is sovereign, then don't expect your prayers to be answered. The next one is from Romans. I beseech ye therefore, my brethren, by the mercy of God, to offer yourselves as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, who is your spiritual worship. You will have a renewal of your mind in doing that. The third one is from Timothy. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. And the older you get, that will become more meaningful to you. And I just want to wish you a happy birthday on your 15th. And now you will have this memory of your grandfather and the spiritual side of me, which I hopefully have revealed to you with this video.